I can't quite contain or explain my evil ways.
Alright, what's up you guys? Enderheart here, back now without your copyright strike anymore. Yay! Now, I know it's been a while, and I know we've almost reached 2,000 subscribers, and since I've been out of the game for so long, taking care of work, figuring out all this stuff, I just want to ask you guys, fans, a quick question. What would you guys like to see? Like types of videos. I do a wide variety of things on this channel, and now I have more freedom without the copyright strike. So what do you guys like the most from me? Fanfiction, readings, speed paints, gameplays. I can do anything you guys want to. We can live stream time to time. Would you guys want a Pokemon Go series? I mean, that's totally possible. It's a pretty fun game. I know I started fighting for control. Do you guys want me to continue that? Cypher Secret is nowhere near an end. I have a new Undertale Fanfiction in the works. Do you guys still want fanfiction readings? The hour-long story times, vlogs, Minecraft, Gary's Mods, Stardew Valley. There's a lot of possibilities now. So, what of my viewers do you want to see from me? Go ahead and comment down below. Thanks for all the support and all the help, you guys. Love you guys. Also follow me on Twitter if you have one. I update regularly. What is up, everybody? Enderheart here, back with another fanfiction video. This time I'm going to be reading a different fanfiction. Ooh, what's this? Undertale? Yes, indeed it is. Just a fun little Undertale fanfiction I found. I saw this through a video online, and I thought it would be really fun to read. It says, archive warning, graphic depictions of violence. This is like crazy. It says, Flowey being his usual edgelord self, bad days ahead for a cool friend. I'm sorry, Flowey is a very reclutant MMO avatar. Violence, physical abuse, emotional slash physiological abuse, Flowey being a fucking horrible bastard, and suicidal. This is crazy! The fanfiction's called Flowey is not a good life coach. Which is funny. And the summary is, Flowey gets bored and decides to change up one of his runs. Papyrus presents an interesting project for the moment. This should be good. Okay. Chapter 1, Tonight on Celebrity Deathmatch. The wind blew through this gallery of caverns, as always bitter cold. Lacking anything that could suffer frostbite, neither of them were bothered by the chill. On the contrary, Flowey savored every small scrap of this sensation he could get. Angling his face into the breeze to feel the prickle of minute ice crystals against his petals. An hour or so of pointless but amusing chatter had lapsed into a comfortable silence. Papyrus reclined in the snow, contently gazing up at the stars on the distant ceiling. He wasn't one to relax like this often, unless his worthless slug of a brother, but this time of night he started to slow down. Flowey took the time to appreciate it. Any event that was even slightly unusual was treasure to him. Papyrus was his favorite toy. He was one of the monsters who wasn't afraid or unsettled by Flowey. It didn't simply occur to him to be frightened, and he was one who could actually hold Flowey's interest for any length of time. The Centauri was endearingly stupid and narcissistic in a harmless sort of way. He was also kind of merciful and to an absolute fault, and needy as hell. It was an interesting set of variables. They become friends in dozens of timelines now. Not that it was an accomplishment on Flowey's part. Papyrus leapt at any scrap of affection like a starving man. Sometime Flowey would have to figure out why that was, but it was low on his list of curiosities at the moment. Right now, it was simply amusing and useful, like the skeleton himself. Generally speaking, Papyrus served as a break from Flowey's heavier experimentation. A palate cleanser of sorts. That routine was starting to get a bit stale, unfortunately. As they enjoyed the night air together, Flowey went went over some options in his head. It wouldn't do to get too extreme right at the start, or anything to fall would be anticlimactic. Besides, sadism was one thing, but thoughtless cruelty on his own was dull. He could do better than that. The real deal was seeing how far he could push a personality off the rails, to see how much he could disorient them, to see how much it took to flip the switch, to take someone apart, learn how they work on the most intimidatable level as possible, then rewire them any way he wanted. Dang! Some monsters were easy to remake into all sorts of cool toys. Some were just easy to break, or broken in spectacular ways. He was curious to find out which kind Papyrus would be. He didn't have a long play worked out quite yet, but he felt like whetting his appetite. There was nothing but time to refine his methods. This go-round would be a warm-up for later projects.
Hey, Papyrus, he said.
Yeah?
You're my favorite skeleton.
Of course I am, Papyrus beamed. It was a sight to see from someone who was atomically predisposed to smiling already.
You're my favorite magical talking flower.
Flowey poked his tongue out, grinning.
Oh, shucks. If I had blood, I'd be blushing right now. A flower of blood sounds gross, Flowey.
Yeah, he said with a genuine chuckle. He loved that Papyrus could simply surprise him so few other monsters could, even if it was such in small ways.
That would be pretty messed up.
They were quiet again for a few minutes. There was no rush. Finally, what Flowey judged to be the proper moment, he spoke.
Papyrus, we're friends, right?
Yes, Papyrus said before Flowey's right had even passed his lips.
We're great chums.
Flowey smiled. I'm glad, he said. Papyrus needed reassurance like flowers needed water. He responded even better to others calling him for reassurance. It was always a good string to pull. Papyrus said after a minute of obvious silence.
Is something on your mind, friend? Because I'm a great listener. As a matter of fact, yes, Papyrus. There is something on my mind. I was just thinking about how tough you are.
Really? Now this really had Papyrus's attention.
Yeah, I feel safe hanging out with you, Flowey said. You want to know a secret?
Papyrus nodded furiously. Enthusiasm practically radiated off of him. A funny thing about him, Flowey thought, was how his prejudiced self-love tended to extend to others. One would accept the opposite. He was a regular sweetheart. Flowey wiggled his leaves thoughtfully.
Did you know I wasn't always a flower?
Papyrus pushed himself up on his elbows.
Get out of town, really?
Yeah, silly goose, Flowey winked. There's a reason no other magical talking flowers are around here, you know. Well, so what were you before? Were you cursed? Papyrus asked, steamrolling over any chance at answering. Are you under an evil spell? It's not that kind that has to be broken by a kiss, is it? Because I'd like to point out right now that I don't even have lips. As much as Papyrus, there's no need, Flowey said, gesturing for his friend to settle down, which he did. Papyrus always listened to him. He was good like that. You certainly have an active imagination, but no, I wasn't under a spell. What happened to me was stranger than that. He paused briefly for the sake of building a little suspense. Papyrus was back to hanging on every word. Such a good boy. The skeleton would have been on edge of his seat if he weren't sitting on the ground. Well, Flowey beckoned him to lean closer, and so he did.
I used to be a really strong monster, a really rare, special one. I was a boss monster.
Flowey bounced on his stem and watched Papyrus's jaw drop.
Wowie!
I know, right? Don't tell anyone. Papyrus shook his head. If there had been any kind of brain in there, Flowey must have mused that it'd be getting pretty scrambled.
I bet you're wondering how a boss monster ended up as a little old flower, huh? It's a super big secret, so I'll whisper it to you.
Papyrus obliged and leaned down close enough that Flowey could whisper into the spot where his ear would have been.
I died.
For a second, Flowey was sure that Papyrus would fall over. He shot upright, gasping.
Crazy, huh?
Flowey said, cutting Papyrus off at the skeleton. Opened his mouth to speak.
I should have disappeared, but I got stuck here. One of the flowers I fell on when I died.
He shrugged his leaves.
Don't ask me how. I could see my own dust around me when I woke up. That's awful!
Papyrus clutched his cape around himself. He settled back down on his knees, looking at Flowey with deep pity. Flowey's parents had both given him that same look once upon a timeline. It didn't piss him off nearly as much coming from Papyrus. Papyrus had been the one to drop the ball and let him get killed in the first place.
Yeah, Flowey said. A bunch of humans came after me when I was just a kid. They beat me to death, he chirped. Oh my God,
Papyrus gasped. He covered his mouth with a gloved hand.
No. Sad, huh?
Flowey drank in the sight of Papyrus shaking in the snow. He enjoyed Papyrus's compassion, even if it was the emotional equivalent to tossing diamonds into a bottomless pit. The pit would accept the tribute gladly.
That's the saddest thing,
Papyrus said, fighting back tears,
I've ever heard.
Oh man, there's a lot of this chapter left.
Nah, Flowey winked. The real kicker is that I was strong enough to have easily killed them. I could have wiped that miserable village off the face of the earth.
Papyrus started.
Sorry,
Flowey said, giggling.
It's a sore spot. I'm sure you understand. Getting murdered is no fun at all. Gosh! I bet not.
Papyrus stammered, sitting back down.
I didn't believe in fighting back then. I was just a kid. A nice kid.
Flowey bobbed on his stem cheerfully.
You weren't born yet, but I bet if you'd been there with me, you would have protected me for sure.
Papyrus straightened his back.
Absolutely. There's no way I, the great Papyrus, would have let those humans harm you.
He frowned, staring down at the snow.
How could they have done something so terrible to a child?
Flowey leaned forward to catch his friend's gaze.
This world is a cruel, cold place, Papyrus. It's kill or be killed out there. You know, I didn't want to believe it, but look where mercy got me.
Papyrus had no response for that, but to pull his cape tighter around himself. He had no body heat to warm him, just a self-soothing reflex that accomplished nothing.
You always pull away your punches, too, Flowey said. I don't know how strong you are for sure. Could you really have saved me?
He dropped his placid smile.
Could you have killed them, or would you have made the same mistake I did?
Ooh. Papyrus glanced around at everything but Flowey. He at least had enough awareness to know this much about himself. Merciful to a fault, it was what was holding him back from his goals. He was either ignorant of the realities of the world or chose to ignore them in favor of how he felt things ought to be. Flowey had never been able to decide which it was. Either option was a mark of stupidity. It would be interesting to see how much of that stupidity could be corrected.
Flowey's smile slipped back into place. I don't want to bum you out, Papyrus. I'd like my sad fate to do some good on this world, you know? I told you my secret because I thought it might help you.
Papyrus cocked his head, a habit he no doubt picked up from the town of mangy mutts he's lived in.
Help me?
I don't follow you.
Well, silly, I wanted you to learn the lesson I died to learn.
Flowey stretched, pulling more of his form out of the ground.
We're going to try a little exercise, if you don't mind,
he said, voice dripping sugar and tar. Papyrus backpedaled, an awkward crab walk that had him stumbling over his cape.
I think I mind a lot, if it's all the same to you.
Flowey ignored his protest. It felt good, more of himself out in the open. He hadn't been indulged in a while.
I'm going to attack you, Papyrus, he said.
His stem creaked as he flexed some of his stiffness out.
For real, and I want you to fight me. I want you to fight me for real. I want you to see what you can do when you don't pull your punches.
While he was talking, Papyrus managed to stumble to his feet. He was trembling.
I don't want to fight you,
he said. He was tall but he now had to crane his neck up to meet Flowey's eyes. He took a step back, hands raised in supplication.
I know you don't, friend,
Flowey said. He pouted.
But if you don't, then I'll have to find another way to teach you the lesson.
He stretched a few handy roots out of the ground. They swished through the chilly air with satisfying whip cracks, fencing Papyrus inside of a small circle that would serve as their arena.
Now, I know the great Papyrus wouldn't dream of running away from a coward, would he? Like a coward, would he? That would disappoint me.
Papyrus was shaking so badly Flowey could hear him rattling.
Please, he said, please don't. We're friends, aren't we? Of course we are, you silly goose. You are my favorite after all.
Flowey prepared his first attack, his favorited ring of bullets coinciding around them.
Now, are you ready to fight like your life depends on it? Because guess what?
His grin split his face wide, showing his teeth.
It does.
And that did the trick at last. Papyrus dropped unthinkingly to his defense stance, raising a hand wreathed in a blue will-o-wisp flame of his magic.
Good boy, Flowey crowed, and then he